Today on Context, as Canada's policy on multiculturalism passes its 40th year, how have communities embraced it and newcomers in their journey to Canada? I'm Lorna Duick, and you're watching Context, the show that looks at life beyond the headlines. It's a new rule that sparked mixed reactions, the Canadian government's ban on face coverings while taking the oath of citizenship. Canada's immigration minister called it a matter of deep principle that goes to the heart of the country's identity and values of openness and equality. But critics disagree. Plus, a 16-point guide for new immigrants created controversy when it was distributed in Gatineau, Quebec. Canada has long been identified as a cultural mosaic. By 2031, 1 in 3 Canadians will belong to a visible minority group. As Canada diversifies, we explore how our communities helping newcomers integrate, and what lessons can we learn from the Bible about the concept of community. Let's put it in context. Our first guest can speak to the ethnic diversity of our Canadian society. Chun Sung Leung is the Conservative MP for Willowdale and Parliamentary Secretary for Multiculturalism. He works closely with Immigration Minister Jason Kenney. Welcome to Context.
Thank you, Lorna.
You know, experts tell us that if you put 50 countries out there, Canada would be one of the lead examples of an effective multiculturalism. But the niqab at citizenship ceremonies was a step too far. Why?
I would suggest that our explanation is that there is right and there's a privilege. In this particular case, we're talking about a privilege. It is a privilege in Canada to be able to drive. It is a privilege in Canada to earn your citizenship. It is something that needs to be earned, and there are certain things that you need to do to earn that citizenship. And in addition, it's a very public affirmation of an act that demonstrates that you're going to be a Canadian and you observe the core values of being a Canadian.
Okay, the only time we do restrict privileges in Canada is if they're going to harm other people, or we restrict rights if they will harm people. Did the government think the niqab was harmful?
Well, not harmful in such a way that it causes bodily harm, but harmful in the way that it strikes at the core value. I mean, there's a trust, there's a bond, there's a trust involved in acquiring or earning Canadian citizenship, and it's a trust that you need to demonstrate to your fellow men, as is the case in Christianity. I think you need to demonstrate that trust when you stand up in front of your congregation, your community, to affirm your your faith in Christ.
So the government at all levels, your federal level, right down to the municipal level, did work in these last 40 years to de-emphasize the Christian majority in Canada. Has that been successful?
Well, I think in de-emphasizing it, what we've done is that we've gone a little bit too secular in that direction. We have sort of taken the fact that we need to bend over backwards, so to speak, to assist nations or immigrants from around the world. Whereas, in fact, many immigrants who come to Canada subscribe to our same core values. You know, the value of freedom, the value of worship, the value of mobility, and to express your own free will. And as such, you know, these are our core Canadian values that we all collectively
so you would say
to.
Keep speaking out about your faith as part of your values, is what I hear you saying.
Well, I think, yes, you can. I mean, you can express it in many ways. But to the point that, you know, as long as it doesn't infringe upon the collective core value.
Another issue of infringing upon has been how economic integration of immigrants has stalled. And in fact, in newcomers, it's decreasing. What can be done to improve the economic well-being of newcomers?
The economic well-being of citizenship or of newcomers has a lot to do with the ability to fit into the mainstream Canadian society. It has to do with the ease of adopting the language, the customs, the work habits. And I think the sooner or the quicker they do that, the easier it is for them to integrate into our mainstream.
Okay, we have someone here from an integration work, the Ministry of Micah House. And I just wanted to ask if we could ask Micah House, who works with refugees, what can be done about economic integration needs here?
One of the things that I hear most from newcomers is frustration with this idea that you have to have Canadian experience when you first come. And so obviously newcomers don't have Canadian experience. So that, I think, finding ways to help employers get past that and find, because people come with skills and gifts that they're ready to use right away, and finding ways to do that. I think for any of us, when we're looking for employment, we use our circle of influence, our contacts, our relationships, and newcomers don't have those. When they arrive, they don't have that. So I think for those of us that are more established in Canada, as we're befriending and getting to know newcomers, to bring them into that, to introduce them to our circles of contacts can make a big difference.
Okay, Micah House, thank you very much. Refugee resettlement. Minister Leong, your Chinese community is Canada's largest ethnic group. It's also the most successfully integrated. What made it so successful in integrating into Canadian life?
Well, let me address that from a different point of view. If you ask me whether we're successfully integrated, I would not say we're the most successfully integrated. I think there is still a little bit of a siloing effect from our lack of fluency with the English language or French. I think there is still this idea that, well, under traditional Confucian ethics, the Chinese culture tend to be more inward-looking. And as a result of that, we don't really participate as much as we should be in the mainstream community. However, we are economically well integrated because because of hard work, because of perhaps professional skills that they bring from somewhere else, and also there's this attitude amongst the Chinese that if we work hard, it will be rewarded and we'll be successful. Yes, there's all of that. What happens is that then they tend to be within their own community, and that is where I would differ slightly from you in that the fact that we're successfully integrated. And yes, and there is 1.3 million Chinese in Canada, and our history it tells us that we've been here over 150 years.
Okay, and you are a great example of integration yourself as a member of Parliament. Thank you very much. Now it's time to find out what you think. Should Canadians be expected to welcome the values of other cultures? Call us or email us. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at Context. You can be part of the conversation there. We'd love to know what you think. When we return, what to do when religion is one of the most divisive issues facing Canada's multiculturalism. We'll talk with an immigrant and integration expert on this next. Stay tuned.